So today we're taking a look at Appify.com. It's the Pro Automator's secret weapon. Basically, it's a marketplace where a lot of builders, a lot of automators post their custom solutions, usually dealing with web scraping. Vast majority of cases, it's also ethical web scraping where we don't get any personal private data. We just get stuff that's publicly accessible. Today we're going to be taking a look at two services, Booking.com and Airbnb, from the perspective of maybe like a hotel manager where we're trying to get reviews or like the latest reviews for our properties. Very typical use case for a lot of our clients. Without any further ado, let's take a look. We're going to start things off as we usually do with a very quick demo. We have a list of our hotels, right? We have 2 hotels that we manage, and we also have 1 Airbnb. What do I want to do? I want to fetch the latest reviews. So all I have to do is just hit this fetch reviews button. I will get a little notification, hey, fetching reviews. It does take a little bit of time, but usually everything tends to work. There we go. Here are our reviews. And these are the latest reviews for this particular hotel. Now, let's test the same thing, but this time for our Airbnb, this one over here, and the same thing will happen. Now, I've also kind of managed to somewhat map the same fields from the Airbnb reviews, and I'm kind of like blending the Booking.com and Airbnb reviews all in one because there's a lot of similarities, I would say, between the two. I would say that those coming a little bit with a lag, the Airbnb reviews, there we go. And that's basically how it works. Let's take a look at how to set this up and generally take a look at Appify because there's a few things that are very important to kind of like note. A couple of words about Appify, I think it's Appify, but essentially you have actors and you can take a look at the Appify store. There is about 4,500 of them. So there's so much choice for pretty much scraping any website or some specific website. All of them have different costs. So some of them cost more than others, but generally speaking, all you need to know from me is when you actually pick an actor, like the ones that I've chosen here, let's say the Booking Reviews Scraper, what do you need to know? So first and foremost, input. This is the first point of call. Here you can actually play out your call. We're not going to get into make just yet, but as soon as you set up these manual pieces of data, let's say, here I want to adjust the review scores filter for my reviews, not from all, I just want to pick the good ones, right? From 7 to 9 out of 10 stars. What you have to do next, just click on JSON, and as you can see, this has been adjusted to good. If I was to change this now to, let's say, superb, if I jump back to JSON, that has now been updated. So essentially we can just grab this code for make.com, and I'm going to show you how to set all of that up. Now, the second thing that I would like to point out, every single time, do check out the cost, and usually it's over here. So right now it's $2 per 1,000 reviews, which I think is decent, right? The final thing I would say that is quite useful, at least to me, is to check out the API endpoint. And the one that we're going to be using, run actor synchronously and get data set items. Because technically, as you saw, those actors sometimes take a lot of time to run, maybe 5 minutes. It will vary. But generally speaking, in this particular case, using this particular endpoint, every actor will have a different endpoint. So please do keep that in mind. Either way, as long as you copy this whole thing up till here, never mind the question mark token, as long as you copy the whole thing up till the end over here, you're golden. Having said all of this, let's take a look at how I've set up Airtable. Right after that, we're going to take a look at the setup of make.com. Let's take a look at Airtable, and really there's much to talk about. We just have a list of hotels. In my case, I have 2 types of hotels. I have Booking and Airbnb. You might have Expedia, you might have a bunch of different other platforms where you get your bookings from. But essentially, in this particular case, for Booking.com, I have my Booking.com link for that hotel. I have essentially the type. I just have 2 types. For Airbnbs, I actually have an extra little field called Airbnb Airbnb room ID, because every single time you actually take a look at an Airbnb property, you will get a room ID right up there in the URL. Finally, we have two very simple fields. We have fetch reviews, which is going to be our trigger. And finally, we have the fetch review status. I want the user to know that something's happening. They've pressed the button. We're fetching reviews, and finally, we're done. Also, a place to store all the reviews, and that is, well, a reviews table where I have my review data. Again, your mileage will vary. There is more than enough data for everybody in terms of like fields. I just wanted the user, the like text, dislike text, traveler type, rating, date, the check-in, checkout. The particular actor that I was using for Airbnb didn't have that information. It is what it is. Maybe I should check out a different actor for Airbnb, and maybe I will get that data. So it's a little bit of a testing sort of kind of situation. That's it in terms of Airtable. Let's jump into make.com and see finally how to set this whole thing up in terms of the automation. Make.com. If you're not familiar with Make, it's one of my favorite automation platforms. Yes, there's Zapier, but I think the people who are like super serious about their automation, they will either take a look at Make or N8N or something like that. My personal favorite, Make.com. If you want to give Make a try, there's a link in the description below. Do check it out. It's an affiliate link, but you will also get 1 month of pro level account with 10,000 operations. Link below. The first thing that we need to do is, of course, we need to create a new scenario. So go ahead and create a new scenario. The first module that you need to put in is a webhook module. So it's over here, custom webhook, put that in, and then make sure that you create a new webhook, give it a name, and grab this link. Grab your link, not this one. Copy address to clipboard, and then jump into Airtable. In Airtable, we have to create a new automation where the trigger, in my case, based on when some records match conditions, and the conditions are super simple. Hotel, fetch reviews is checked. When that's done, we run a script. So here's the script. Make sure that you replace this webhook over here with your webhook that you've just copied, right? And last but not least, make sure that you actually put the input variables here, just like I have done. Record ID, copy this exactly to the letter, and then we have value, which essentially I just need to map the Airtable record ID value in there, and I have done that. Once you've done all of this, press finish. Editing. Don't forget to turn this on. I have forgotten many times and I was wondering what is going on. Why is it not working? Well, that's basically it. You're set up in terms of your trigger. Next few modules, and this is super simple. Like, we've done some crazier things on this channel. The first thing that we need to do is get the record. So I'm using an Airtable module, the get a record type, and I'm just basically getting my hotel. I'm just mapping my record ID in there. Next, I'm updating that same hotel record ID with the fetch review status looking something like this. Then I have a router and I have a few choices. So the first choice essentially is for booking.com, the second choice is for Airbnb, and the third one doesn't even have a filter. It's essentially going to run when I finish the process. Essentially, it's just posting that final update to the user saying checkmark, done, and a timestamp. Simple. Let's take a look at these bad boys, and they are set up pretty much exactly the same in exactly the same way, specifically from the perspective of Apify. First thing you need to know, we're using the make an API call module, and it's important that you do, but you can of course experiment if you want to, but this is what I'm using. First of all, remember that little URL, that endpoint. So over here, API endpoints, we grab this part over here and we copy this, paste it in, remove everything up until that point. There we go. Paste that in. Method is post, leave everything else as is, and the final piece, of course, is this little body that you need to copy from the input tab over here. Just make sure you press on JSON and copy this part. Now, once you've copied it, of course, don't forget to map your own booking.com link. Now, in the case of Airbnb reviews scraper, this one had a different body. So let's take a look at that. It requires us only to post the ID of the room. Simple as that, right? There's no other parameters, or at least I think there's no other parameters. Not the greatest, I guess, of actors, but it's cheap. Over here, as you can see, I've just pasted in my room and I've mapped the Airbnb room ID. So it's imperative that you actually have it there. Both cases, I get a body response that is an array. What I need to do with an array, you might ask, is use an iterator to pass through it, to like take each item within that array, each review in other words, and push it through the system. What I'm doing actually right after that, I'm checking my reviews and I want to make sure that that review ID doesn't exist, because every single review payload from the body, from that array that we're iterating through, that comes with an ID. It's not always marked ID. In this case it is, but like in the case of Airbnb, it's called ID comment. But still, it's a unique ID that we can use to double check that we're not bringing in duplicate reviews. And I'm doing that with this little review module, just making sure that review ID equals ID, limit to 1, total number of bundles equals to 0. So in other words, I don't find the same thing. If I don't, then I actually add that review into my Airtable base, and I've mapped my review table just like so. So feel free to be inspired by this. The same thing goes as well for our Airbnb reviews. And again, I'm just mapping things as I see fit. And that's it. How cool is that? I would love to hear your thoughts. There's so many things that people do with Apify. I'm just not even scratching the surface with this particular demo for, fetching reviews for booking and Airbnb. Let me know down in the comments below how you use Apify. Maybe there's some very interesting use cases there that we can explore together. I'll see you in the next one. Cheers.